Keimer and I got along pretty well and were quite friendly. He didn't suspect I was planning to start my own business. He still had a lot of his old passions and loved to argue, so we had a lot of debates. I'd really get him with my Socratic method, tricking him often with questions that seemed totally unrelated to what we were discussing. But gradually, I'd lead him to the main point, cornering him with problems and contradictions. Eventually, he became ridiculously careful and would barely answer even the simplest question without first asking. However, this gave him such a high opinion of my ability to prove people wrong that he seriously suggested I become his partner in a plan he had to start a new religious group. He would preach the beliefs, and I would shut down anyone who disagreed. When he started explaining the beliefs to me, I found several tricky issues I didn't like, unless I could also have some say and add some of my own ideas. Keimer wore a full beard because somewhere in the Mosaic Law it says so. He also observed the Sabbath on the seventh day. These two things were really important to him. I didn't like either of them, but I agreed to accept them if he would adopt the belief of not eating any meat. He said, "I doubt my body can handle that." I assured him it would, and that he'd feel better for it. He was usually a big eater, and I looked forward to having some fun by making him practically starve. He agreed to try it if I would join him. I did, and we stuck with it for 3 months. A woman from the neighborhood regularly cooked and brought us our meals. I'd given her a list of 40 different dishes to prepare for us at various times, none of which contained fish, meat, or poultry. This whole idea suited me even better at the time because it was so cheap, costing us no more than 18 pence sterling each per week. Since then, I've strictly observed several Lents, switching between a special diet and my regular one suddenly, without any trouble at all. So I don't think there's much to the advice about making such changes gradually. I was fine with it, but poor Keimer suffered terribly. He got tired of the project, longed for rich, meaty food, and ordered a roast pig. He invited me and 2 women friends to dinner, but the pig was brought to the table too early, and he couldn't resist. He ate the whole thing before we even arrived.
During this time, I had been trying to win over Miss Reed. I had a lot of respect and affection for her, and I had reason to believe she felt the same way about me. But since I was about to go on a long trip, and we were both very young, just a little over 18, her mother thought it would be wisest to keep us from getting too serious right then. A marriage, if it were to happen, would be more practical after I returned, when I expected to have my business established. Maybe she also thought my hopes weren't as realistic as I believed. My main friends at this time were Charles Osborne, Joseph Watson, and James Ralph, all of whom loved to read. The first 2 worked as clerks for a well-known legal writer or property lawyer in town, Charles Brockton. The other was a merchant's clerk. Watson was a devout, sensible young man with strong morals. The others were a bit more relaxed about their religious beliefs, especially Ralph, who, like Collins, had been influenced by my ideas, and they both ended up causing me trouble because of it. Osborne was sensible, open, and honest. He was sincere and caring with his friends. But when it came to literature, he loved to criticize too much. Ralph was clever, polite in his behavior, and a fantastic speaker. I don't think I ever met anyone who talked more charmingly. Both of them really admired poetry and started trying to write their own short pieces. The 4 of us often took nice walks on Sundays into the woods near Schuylkill, where we'd read to each other and discuss what we'd read. Ralph was keen on studying poetry, convinced he could become famous and make money from it. He claimed that even the best poets must have made as many mistakes as he did when they first started writing. Osborne talked him out of it, assuring him he had no talent for poetry. He advised him to stick to the business he was trained for, saying that in trade, even without capital, he could, through hard work and being on time, get hired as an agent and eventually earn enough to trade for himself. I approved of enjoying poetry occasionally, as long as it helped improve one's language, but nothing more. So it was suggested that at our next meeting, each of us should bring a piece we had written ourselves so we could improve through each other's observations, criticisms, and corrections. Since we were focusing on language and expression, we decided not to worry about coming up with original ideas. Instead, we agreed the task would be to write our own version of the 18th Psalm, which describes God coming down. As our meeting time got closer, Ralph came to see me first and told me his piece was ready. I told him I'd been busy and, not really feeling like it, hadn't done anything. He then showed me his piece for my opinion, and I really liked it, as it seemed to me to be very good. He said, "Now, Osborne will never admit anything I write has any merit. He just criticizes it 1,000 times out of pure jealousy. He's not as jealous of you, so I wish you would take this piece and present it as your own. I'll pretend I didn't have time and won't produce anything. Then we'll see what he says about it." We agreed, and I immediately copied it out so it would look like my own handwriting.
We met. Watson's piece was read. It had some good parts, but many flaws. Osborne's was read. It was much better. Ralph gave it fair credit, pointing out some flaws, but praising the good parts. He himself had nothing to show. I held back, seemed to want to be excused, claiming I hadn't had enough time to revise, etc. But no excuse was accepted. I had to present it. It was read and read again. Watson and Osborne gave up, joining in praising it. Ralph only offered some criticisms and suggested some changes, but I defended what I had written. Osborne sided against Ralph, telling him he was no better a critic than he was a poet, so Ralph dropped the argument. As the two of them walked home, Osborne spoke even more strongly in favor of what he thought was my work. He said he had held back earlier so I wouldn't think he was just flattering me. He said, "But who would have imagined that Franklin was capable of such a piece? Such vivid imagery, such power, such passion. He's even improved on the original. In everyday conversation, he seems to struggle for words. He stumbles and makes mistakes. And yet, my goodness, how he writes." When we met again, Ralph figured out the trick we had played on him, and Osborne got a bit of a laugh.
This whole incident solidified Ralph's decision to become a poet. I did everything I could to talk him out of it, but he kept writing poems until Bope cured him. He did, however, become a pretty good prose writer. More about him later. But since I might not get another chance to mention the other two, I'll just note here that Watson died in my arms a few years later. He was greatly missed and was the best of our group. Osborne went to the West Indies, where he became a well-known lawyer and made money, but he died young. He and I had made a serious pact. Whoever died first would, if possible, pay a friendly visit to the other and tell him what things were like in the afterlife. But he never kept his promise.